Welcome to My Favorite CX, a podcast that celebrates exceptional customer experiences. To listen to today's, please choose from one of the following options.
Welcome to My Favorite Customer Experience, the podcast that celebrates exceptional customer experiences. I'm your host, Chris Holt from Holt CX Consultancy here in the UK, and I'm joined by Mike Gale, founder at Acacia Consultants. Mike, welcome to the podcast.
Welcome, Chris. That's good. Thank you to be here.
And to let you in on a little bit of how well this podcast can at times be planned, Mike woke up today not knowing he was going to be on the podcast, and it was an emergency favour as I've had some guests drop out. But he very graciously went and changed into a collared shirt just before we started recording. And yeah, we're going to chat about his favourite customer experience in a bit. But Mike, you've been in the world of CCaaS for over 25 years now, working with the likes of Verint, NICE, and most recently Zoom. And as a services leader, you've overseen deployments of CX solutions around the world, and now moving into the consultancy space to offer guidance and strategic advice to leaders and businesses. You're also a bit of a man of mystery, aren't you? Which takes me back to when we first met.
Very true. As I think you called out the other day, I live within the margins, or sometimes outside of the margins. I think this is a thing that over time you learn how to work with customers. Actually, it's the own CX experience with working with customers that not all customers want to be treated the same. Sometimes they want to be treated differently, and actually when you interact with them, they don't always want to follow the same political, process lines as well. But yeah, I mean, hiding yourself out into, so people don't know who you are sometimes works to a big advantage. It also works as a disadvantage, as you say, from the first time we met, because people never knew who I was when I was in NICE. People didn't know what I looked like, but people knew my name and knew things happened and things just appeared, or things got resolved, or challenges got overcome. But the mystical of who Mike Gale was, someone always said to me, do you actually have a stand-in actor? Do is this the true Mike Gale? And at some point I actually, it was great. It played massive advantage to me, massive disadvantage as well, because people just didn't know who I was. So it was great. I could be in the office. No one bothered me. I was able to get everything done. But then you get to that stage where, we met in the canteen. You didn't know who I was. Well, my name, but you didn't know who I was. We were having a great chat, walked away. Someone probably said to you, oh, you're talking to Mike, and you're like, Mike who? So it's one of those things where, it's great for people not to know you. Disadvantage in the actual industry, because people know the name, never put it a name to the face. So, here it is now actually presenting it.
Well, that was the thing as well, because now your LinkedIn, you have a headshot on everything, whereas back in the NICE days, you were known for no profile picture, no video, and it was literally like cloak and daggers. And then we were at it was the final years of COVID, so I think it was the UK only sales kickoff, and we're all in the canteen. Yep. And then we'd been chatting for a while, and then I had it just seemed like a friendly guy. And then afterwards, that was Mike Gale. I'm like, and I think I messaged you, but
really sorry, I didn't realize it was you. And you're right, because my profile picture, I'd got random. I think I had at that point in time Thunderbird's brains as my picture, no one's really allowed to do that. I don't know how I got away with it either in NICE, and it's definitely not something I would recommend to anyone coming in this industry. Make sure you're well known, make sure everyone knows your face, knows the name, puts a name. But like I said, it worked well for me, and I think that was a bit of a turning circle, time for me as well. So it changed my approach coming out of COVID. So I mean, COVID for us in the CX world was manic. I mean, it was probably the busiest time that I've ever worked within this industry. We were turning up stuff at a rapid pace. Customers' demand was extremely high. Standards weren't high. Standards were medium to low, because we just needed to get the stuff out the door. But it was then actually, I think, coming out of COVID, that's what's changed. The sort of CX world, the CCaaS world has dramatically altered coming out of COVID. But it's that point when actually you want people to know who you are. You want them to actually be able to go, actually, this person knows what he's talking about, or this person's helped me through this. But yeah, it was. But I think that's also part of a problem with, and this is sort of me going against my own sort of beliefs in one ways. Being that faceless person is also being that when you're working from home, because you never used to be forced to go onto camera. It was quite acceptable just to be on a call, be on a meeting. Now you're sort of shunned if you don't have your camera on after COVID. It's sort of like, not because they don't trust you, it's just because they want to see you as the person. They want to interact with you. It's another interaction. And again, this is how CX has changed. This is why video has come as important as phone calls. This is why chats are as, similar to the sort of, more important than emails anymore. Emails have gone all out, but having that facial connection makes a massive difference.
Yeah, I think for me, a lot of that resonates because COVID was a time of extreme growth in my career. I was part of, when COVID started, I was out on the road all the time at Ring Central, and I just joined the global CCAS SE team, but realistically, the meetings were when I was on the road or commuting, so you weren't really joining, and there was a perception of, well, we don't really matter. And then when COVID happened, you're working from home, you're like, well, I'll start joining. And then I started participating. And then within a couple of months, someone had earmarked me for the practice lead job. And it changed the trajectory of my career, realistically. And it became, and I think before COVID, when I go to meetings and things, I was very good at being present, but not being loud. And not purposely loud. And I'd have my observations, but I'd kind of wait my turn and then make some very astute recommendations and things. But I might get lost in the traffic. And one thing going on to video calls and COVID kind of taught me is you need to be a bit louder. You need to be a bit more forthright and a bit more open with who you are. I mean, the wall of tap behind me that has become famous now. Before COVID, I used to hate having my video on and hated having anything personal behind me. And then when you're on calls all day, part of this is to entertain me. And part of this is, you see, I'll join a call and someone will be like, is that Andre the Giant up there?
There. Yep.
You'll have people go, oh, I recognize that. I recognize that. And it's like, I used to have Work Chris, and Work Chris was very, very, very professional and shut down any personal talk and didn't let people in. And then actually the redundancy from Ring moving to Nice, I was like, I need to change something. And I started letting people in and changing how I was a little bit more at work. And I found I started enjoying it a bit more. It's weird, isn't it?
It is, and you actually get better reactions and working with. I mean, I've always worked remotely. All right, for me, it's alien going into an office, and that I think, but that has also been a hindrance within my career because you don't actually grow when you're not interacting with people. You just get the job done, and it's great because you can get stuff done, but to actually grow in a career, and especially in such a difficult environment now, which CCAS and WEM industries, and especially with AI coming in, it's so saturated, and you've got the new generations coming up as well, and the new generations bring a different level of confidence to them. They might not have the experience, but they've got the confidence because school actually teaches you to be louder, to be present, to actually be aware of yourself and actually be confident in yourself. As through the sort of my career, it was you were seen by what you achieved and what your outputs were and what customers thought of you and so forth. And okay, that's highly required still. You can't just be loud and in everyone's face to get promotion, because that's just like, well, that's the social media effect, isn't it, at the end of the day? But if you combine all of those elements together, you grow as a person. And I think it actually gets into that sort of mentoring stage. How do you actually grow in the CX world now? How do you actually grow in the CCAS world? How do you not just get forgotten and put to the side? And it is being heard and it is being seen. So yeah, it's different generation, different way of dealing stuff. And this is part of the evolution, I think, as we go forwards into the unknown effect of what it comes after AI, and how do people changed their interactions because of AI. I mean, at the moment, you wouldn't even know if I was an avatar.
Very true.
Well,
And
you
that
would,
would certainly have
because
solved like my needing to get a podcast recorded thing. I could have just said, let's have Mike's avatar.
to be fair, we should have actually had. I mean, if you look at the vendors out there that can do the avatars and how well those avatars are, okay, I would have been very static and there's no movement in it, so that's a real giveaway. But they're getting better every day, and pre-recorded elements for it or repeat elements, especially even training under an avatar, is quite good. And if you can then back it with AI to be able to handle those ad hoc questions, or where you can do that interrupt from a human to aid the bot. Oh my, this is game changer, and this is what still energizes me around this industry. It's not per se the same old, same old. Every day is different. Different customers, different requirements. Don't get me wrong; have a lot of the same problems and the same challenges, and you still hear the same terms. We've always done it that way. But technology is moving so rapid now that you've got to keep on top of it, and that's what drives change. That's what drives that evolution and that transformation in that, instead of that transition into that new world where customers can truly explore the endless capability. It's all open. The plausibility to them is endless. It's amazing how many customers don't want to go down that route. They just want to stay in their comfort zone. If there's one thing I'd do for 26 is break the comfort zone.
And I think though the thing there is that it's achievable now. I mean, it was always
Yeah.
achievable in the past, but integration in the past was one of those words that would give you grey hair and keep you awake at night because it meant so many things to different people. And it often meant, I mean, if I think back to when I was on the tools as an engineer, it often meant in the Avaya world, you need a TSAPI server, an AES server, and you need like 20 more servers just to connect one thing to another to get a screen pop. And
Yeah.
now with the on rise of AI and the computing power and things you couldn't even imagine doing are now possible.
Mm-hmm.
And that I can see that's scary for a lot of businesses as well. And that's, I guess, where you come in.
Yes. Yeah, and it is scary having that capability to utilizing tools that will link functions together, break barriers down, surface information, and make knowledge more accessible to both internal and external parties. It can be extremely scary, and most of the time it's because they don't have the exact controls around that data, or it hasn't been sanitized, it hasn't been constructed in the right way. And it's where the consultants now can step in. And I mean, I put out a post maybe even about a month ago where it's sort of saying consultancy is back, because there was a stage where consultancy had sort of came to be the dirty word, because of course vendors were outlining that, hey, technology is easy, technology is just do this, here you can create what you had previously. But the consultancy sort of died away because people just thought it was that simple. Now consultancy is coming back because everyone started getting tech debt, because they did just keep on doing the same old, and they couldn't see the art of the possible. Or how do we link these together? How do we architect this from point A to point B to point C to surface the right information to our customers? How do we empower our customers as well as empowering our own employees? And they hadn't even thought about it. And that's where the consultants come in. And there is some fantastic consultants in this industry that have years and years of knowledge, not just around your TSAPI servers, your MAPDs, and of course the great old legacy technology that was, but also the actual how to get the best out of what they've actually got. Because, and I think this is, and we've had this discussion before, people don't actually utilize or adopt the technology that they actually have to the fullest.
Absolutely.
And that's where sort of your clips comes in, explaining the full utilization of capabilities. And the vendors don't always push it either. They push it to the comfort zone of the customer instead of pushing the customer outside of the comfort zone and saying, actually, this is what else you could do with it. This is what it could change for you. You don't have to do it, but this is where, if you made these small alterations, look at the benefit it could come to your customers.
I think that's a key point as well. I mean, I used to liken it to you buy a car and you don't know what every button does. Now, I've got a car on the drive that's been there for a year, and actually, when it got valeted last week, it came back with something turned on, like the cruise control, and I had to figure out how to turn it off because I hadn't turned those buttons on at all because they're not something I use. And I think you get that where you will naturally use maybe 10, 20% of features. Sorry, folks, we just had a slight technical difficulty there where you might notice on the video we've both swapped headsets. So I think, yeah, for me, one of the things that I've really enjoyed with consultancy is getting people past that only using 10, 15% of a product. Going on site and sitting down with the customer and go, did you know you could do this? And, the defense from the vendors is always, well, it's in the release notes. It's like, that's great, but no one has time to read the release notes. It took me, so the video I put out yesterday on 26.1 from NICE, it took me 45 minutes to record the thing, hours to research, hours to then figure out what's actually important. And that's done like nearly 100 hits in a day, which doesn't sound like much in the wider world of YouTube, but for a informational video about contact center, that's like insane. And that's because people just want to know, how will it actually impact me? What is it actually worth? What will this do? And I think that's kind of a service I provide, is like, to your point, of working within the margins and going, right, just because vendor A says this is new and this is shiny, actually there's features B, C, and D that are more important to a supervisor or to an agent. I mean, trying to break that down of, well, this is relevant, and finding those little nuggets that there'll be stuff you see and you're like, why aren't they shouting about that? Why aren't they, shouting about some of this stuff?
It is. I mean, and you're right. I mean, the vendors are keep on releasing new functionality, and it's the communication of that functionality and the capability to get it to the right position or the right person in the organization to even utilize it. But I think even if you scrape it right down to the real basics, it's having that first initial discussion with a customer and actually understanding not just their organization, but their brand and how their brand operates, to actually then sort of say, right, and I had a great conversation with this guy called Andrew recently, and he's like, what would you do if you could start again? You had no idea of what a contact center was. Would you actually build a contact center the same? And the answer always is no. No one ever would build a contact center to get the same. And they would then probably be more open to new features, functions, capabilities of these vendors, but they're very moment caught up based off of their current processes, restraints, or even guidance and targets and goals that they're trying to achieve. And this is why I put out a post recently about, there can only be one goal, one KPI. Why are we measuring stuff that brings no value? And I think this is where consultation comes down to its rawness, really, and it allows people. And consultation is not magic, all right? It's broadening the conversation. It's actually asking questions that make people think. That's the pure, fact of what consultation actually is. It's the rawness of that, which is we're asking the right questions, get them thinking about where it could go to, sort of starting out with a foundation. And of course, I've got the 3 Ws, which is the sort of the foundation that I'm working around, sort of the AI, to identify the right AI solutions for customers in the right way to deliver that. But that also explores into your point, what features work for one customer doesn't work for another, because it might not work for their brand, it might not work for their organization, but it's what actually would work and how do we actually go. But it's not also the current, it's also looking to the future and trying to get people to think of it doesn't matter where you are today, okay, where are we going to be in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months down the line? How's your organization going to change? What do you want to change in your organization? And what are your customers truly saying? And where is the friction that's in that relationship today? And why are your customers actually even calling you? It doesn't matter that they are calling you, but why are they calling you? And why isn't that fixed underlying of the issue? If it's to do with, they can't access something, well, let's see how we can get that as a self-service so they can access it. And I think this is where consultancy is going to have is going to come bigger and better, and especially in the way that the AI is going. Delivering the right AI solutions and delivering it into the right automation to deliver that self-service or create and the branding. You need to understand where you are, where you need to go to get to that stage. As not, as you know, not all use cases are the same. Not all use cases can be achieved by every single vendor. But vendors, people are buying AI today based on FOMO because everyone talks about it. Everyone thinks they need it. Everyone's got budget for it. And of course, vendors at the moment play to that full tune, but actually they don't listen to what truly is the underlying benefits to it. They're just looking at how do I show you an ROI that actually means that you've achieved your foundation of why you purchased it.
I think that's a big thing, isn't it? Like if you think back 15 years, no one in networking ever got fired for buying Cisco. And now it's like, you're not going to get fired if you buy AI because that's what the boss wants, because at the golf course, the other CTO's got AI and he's boasting about what he's done and all that kind of stuff. And I probably just generalized a whole C-suite there, but it's the whole FOMO thing. And it is that fear of, well, they're doing it. So there must be something. But
Yep.
not everyone's ready for it. I saw an interesting post just today from another consultant was like, don't deploy AI if you found, and it was like, don't deploy AI. And then it was like an if. And in fact, it's Charlie Adams who was on the show a few weeks back. And it's like, if your foundation is not there, all AI is going to do is exacerbate that and highlight that that's an issue. You need to fix things. And when we talk about working within the margins, sometimes I'll go into a business and I might focus on some of the most unglamorous parts. Like, why is this agent like average hold count 4 over like another agent where it's 1? And it's like, that sounds really unglamorous because you can't really throw AI at that, but you might be able to throw Copilot at it or some traditional training. Is that someone that just needs some help? Because actually, if we can reduce that hold count down, then that person is probably going to have better calls with that customer.
Yeah, and it's providing more time and and that personal experience that people really crave, that they actually think you're dealing with their issue as you go. But yeah, it's a funny world at the moment. It's a transient position that we sit in, as the final positioning of where this will lead to isn't defined yet. And I think there's a lot of sales kickoffs this year that are sort of driving down and lead with AI, or it's the AI is their foundation of that vendor, but there's not the actual understanding of where does that actually lead to, and where does that truly bring the benefits. They're just transitioning human interaction methods today into an AI automated method, and that doesn't always work for everyone, as you said. And there is a lot of interaction. There's contact centers that they still don't even have the foundations right, from even that being able to do bullseye routing. Their routing logics aren't always the right approach. They haven't got those standard integrations to do pops to the CRM.
That data layer is still not there. And it's getting easier, and a lot of the vendors are and even using AI to go, or let's just use these APIs in this way. That's getting easier, but there's no point sprinkling on the special source of AI if the data layer is not connected, or the knowledge layer as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, and there's lots of other industries, even into the sort of the MVNO world, where the cost for humans is too high to actually have a human agent to actually answer the calls, because you can't return on it. So that makes AI fit really, really well. And the use cases and the scenarios of how that data is surfaced to customers works perfectly. But then you've got other ones where you could have had a breakdown. You could be in you could be very vulnerable at that position. You want to talk to someone. An AI bot is not going to flag it. And that data can, understanding how to identify these things leads to change and so forth. But I think this is where we're getting to that stage where that's where the consultancy come back into the mix. It's which use cases, when should we do it, why should we do it? And consultants shouldn't be fearful of the C-level either, even though they're going to be on the golf course, as you said, and they're talking of who's got, which solutions and so. But it's been able to stand up and go, no, actually, it's not right. It's not right to you, and you shouldn't be doing this, or this is the path that you. And that is where the consultation comes into, is that strength of actually saying no, as well as saying yes into those cases. But I mean, most of the time we're sort of talking about all the negatives, and there is a lot of negatives into it, but there's a lot of positives in across this world at the moment, and the functionality, because the accessibility that it drives to allow, greater capabilities or let's say greater capabilities of bringing different agents into it that bring, that can have different disabilities is amazing, because that is the real change where this comes to. It does allow people to work from home. It does allow people to be in the office. It allows people to have that flexibility and inclusion of those to work with it, and that is where AI is really driving it and allowing that to happen. So the work start, the way that contact center is constructed, the way that phone systems operate will change, but there is good and there's bad, and we've got to look at all of those functions before we can actually truly judge it. But it's 24 months from now, we won't be having this conversation around AI, because it will be a standard thing. It will be out of the box. You automatically get it, and away it goes, and it'll be self-tuning. It'll be self-learning. You probably won't even have to build your own prompts anymore. It will self-construct from prompts of the tool, and we'll sit there and going, do you remember the time that we talked about prompts and having to build our own tools? And it'll be that sort of back in the days. It'll be talking about the same as the
AES
the game
service and
consoles.
things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Mac D's. Things move so fast these days. So I think it's not about when people will do it. It's an if, but they also have to look at what is their competitiveness edge to it. If their competitors are doing it and they're not doing it, they have to think the why. Why am I not doing this, and why? What should we be doing, or what benefit have they got? But yeah, I think it's 24 months, even 18 months from where we are today. It's going to be a very, very different positioning, to where we even stand today. And who knows? We might even start losing channels in the grand scheme of things. Email might once and forever actually come with their channel. Who knows?
I think we've got our headline for the episode there. Tell you what, Mike, what we'll do is just before you start predicting flying cars next, we will take a short pause, and we'll come back and ask you about one of your favorite customer experiences.
Cool.
Your call is important to us. Please hold, and you'll be connected to your next favorite customer experience shortly.
Welcome back to my favorite customer experience. I'm here with Mike Gale from Acacia Consultants. And before the break, we were talking about AI and some of the interesting things we're expecting to see in the industry. So, Mike, when it comes to sharing a favorite customer experience, I assume it's going to have AI layered all over it.
Well, no, not at all. At this moment in time, I don't think I've actually had a great customer experience based off of based out of vendors or.
So that's a challenge we can set right there.
Absolutely, it is. Other than not, and there is other insurance providers out in the market, so I'm not trying to specifically hit on one brand here. But if you looked at automation from out on there, Admiral Insurance has probably got the best capability of self-service that I've ever come across. So big shout out to Admiral there. No plug, nothing there from me on it. But from a experience perspective, the best customer experience I'm still seeing, and there is stuff in contact centers, where you phone them up and they're able to help, they're able to address your needs, but you always feel that you're in the churn. The best experience is you're still getting the personal experience. And a perfect example, I was collecting a car yesterday, and I'm terrible. I am probably the worst person to deal with on collecting cars, and I think even my wife is embarrassed to be near me at that point in time because I'm a stickler to detail. And when something's not right, I'm not fearful to sort of say, "No, I'm not having it. It's not good enough." And so, in the collection of the car yesterday, unfortunately, this poor lad called Zach got a double barrel of no, this isn't good enough, and this needs to be changed. And instead of him sort of taking it to the point of, oh my God, panicking around it, he was like, no, you're right. That isn't good enough. I missed it. I'm really, really sorry. And instead of them sort of going, okay, well, let's compensate you, the next thing they said was, what do we need to do to make this right? And that, I think, is something that you miss in a contact center, because if you get phone up and you have you've got a problem or you've got a complaint, the first thing they look at is how did they refund you, or how
How do
did
they get
they
rid of you?
credit up? Yeah.
How
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 do they
how do
make
they
up?
move? Whereas how do we make this right is we see you.
Yeah. And we understand that every customer has different requirements. And, after that, and I outlined what I wanted them to do, you know, they they stopped. They actually took an engineer off of servicing someone's car. So I do apologize to the person that was impacted based off of me having a bit of a wobbly yesterday around this. And they put him straight on to, sorting the problem out, you know, swapping out the wheels and so forth. And it was done, an hour later down the line. And the nice thing about it is, even though they were, like, it's going to be an hour and they were apologetic, you know, they even then let me take out a GTS. They knew I wasn't going to buy it, but it was sort of that, it was a bit of a compensation. Hey, go and play in that sort of thing. You crash it, you brought it statement that went along with it. But it was that end to end, it was a personal experience. They adjusted to the situation, they adjusted to my sentiment, they adjusted to my requirement, and they actually achieved an outcome goal, which was me taking the car away, happy, and me actually going, do you know, I'm going to get a service plan now for that car. I've never had a service plan ever on the car, and I wouldn't have probably have even considered one. But now I have, because it's like, I know that they're going to take care of me because they understand what is needed in the industry. And that is what I'd love to see and get back into. And this is why going into consultancy now and coming away from that services element of actually just delivering, yes, it's delivering an outcome, but actually helping someone construct it from ground zero upwards in the right manner to ask the question, what do we need to do? Instead of, let me work out why this has happened. It's too late when you try and work it out, it's already happened. Let's actually make it right. Get it into the contact centers is going to change. And that is where, leading back into the AI element of it, AI will probably will work in that way when you prompt it in that way to actually go, let's make it right. Let's understand, it can give that more personal experience, because in theory, it's actually given more time, because you don't see measurements where it's going,
No one cares about the
handle
average
time.
handle time, do they? As long as it doesn't go over a token or 24 hours or whatever the vendor measurement is. In theory, yeah, you're right. That virtual agent has a lot more autonomy to deal with something. And I think what's interesting there is if we flip it into the contact center world, and we are awful customers because we know too much about how good things can be done. But I think you've got there, if we're looking at an analytics and it being a phone call, we've got something we'd say, this was a bad call to start with and it's ended up good. And what did the agent do to resolve that? And all of those behaviors that we're looking for in contact centers, that person provided for you. They made sure you were seen. They asked what you would like the resolution to be. They didn't bulk at it and say, no, we're not going to do that. And then they set expectations, right? This is going to take an hour. Why don't you have a coffee? Why don't you take another car out, drive around for a little bit and calm down, have some fun, whatever you need to do. But they then, by the sounds of it, made you feel seen and satisfied. And they've also influenced your behaviors because, one, you're talking about it on a podcast, and two, you've taken out a service plan. So you've actually spent more with them as a result of something that started off as a bad experience.
Yeah. I could have walked away from it and it could have, ended out being terrible, but I think it is a different way of thinking. And, I don't know if that's a generational element to it as well. Like I said, the sales guy that I was working with, that was basically helping resolve it. He's got to be in his, sort of late 20s, early 30s. But and as we were saying at the outset, the confidence of it to want to do the right thing is there. And I think that's the thing I think sometimes we've always lost, is doing the right thing, even if that is saying no. It doesn't always have to be yes, and you've got to be able to justify it, back it with facts on it. And, he had everything. He had all the support of the organization he worked in. He had the support of his managers, and he had the support of, even sub departments as well. So the engineering team, the engineers there,
They didn't
stopped
tell
what
him
they
to
were
go
doing.
away. They were
They
like,
didn't tell
no,
them, and
and that means
working as a
everyone is
team.
on the same page. They're
Yeah.
all, but no one's going, well, I'm up against my target, up against mine, so I can't do that. It's a collaborative approach and a holistic approach, and made for a difference by the sounds of it, because that isn't the case in every car franchise and in every business, I guess.
Yeah, no, it definitely isn't. And, I mean, it's not. I've had an experience of different brands across the, in the car industry, and I wouldn't say they're all the same. And the car industry is definitely changing. It's definitely coming to more of a conveyor belt. It's got to be a churning mechanism, and absolutely, it's the same as most. It's how they've evolved to be able to churn the cars out as quick as they possibly can. But you've still got to have that. You've got to be seen as, seen, heard, and treated as an individual in there. It's a big investment, and I think this is the, in the contact center, as you said, it's how do I get you off the phone? How do I resolve your challenge as quick as humanly possible and get you off the phone? But that person on the end of that phone, as the customer, has invested their time, their money in your organization. Why do I want to get off this phone as quick as possible? Maybe you can't fix my problem, but maybe you can talk to me about it, and maybe we can have a chat about it, and maybe you can tell me a bit more details of why, and actually make me feel like actually I still, my brand trust to you is still there, and that, I think, is being lost. It's been diluted as you go, but this is the evolution. So, even sort of 5 years ago, they were saying contact centers were going to be dead in 10 years' time. Definitely not the case. People are still going to need to interact, even with AI, even with automation. They still need that human touch. They need that emotion. They need that connection. And that connection is something that is getting lost. And I think if we can start from scratch, if people can reevaluate what their contact centers do, what their brand is, we would be in a very different position, and the world would be in a very different place. And I think, that tool to that gateway to actually start that, involvement is going to be the AI functionalities, because like you said, there is no measurement against it. AI is given much more lenience than the human at this moment in time. But actually, that should then allow the humans' connections to still give better CX experience, because the bot can take away the mundane, the repeat, the annoyance, and we can get into actually seeing something back to what and this sounds bad because it makes me sound really old. Back in the good old days. Has there actually ever been a good old days in the contact center?
I'm not sure it has. But I think one of the things, you hear it a lot of AI will take away the mundane from the agent, but that then becomes, if I think about your car salesperson, they were empowered and they had empathy. And one of the concerns I always have is if you're going to take all the easy stuff away from an agent, then what comes to them is the more complex, the more technical, the more stressful, potentially, the more emotional conversations. So we also have a duty to our contact center agents to, one, empower them still, but also give them a bit more space. So, we see like auto summarization is, oh, we'll get rid of your ACW time. It's like, well, what if that's time to breathe?
Yes.
How do we manage that so that our humans can be the best possible humans they can be when they're still serving these more complex? And actually, maybe what we should be focusing some of the AI on is some of the complex as well.
And it will get to there. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a trust element at the moment where the complex elements are not trusted to AI to make that decision, they still want humans to be involved in decision making, and they can do that. A lot of the solutions these days can actually not just elevate to a human to make that decision, but actually include an agent or a human to actually make that decision. And I think that's something where the more complex scenarios we get into for AI, it's actually proven that it's very, very capable of doing it, and probably in a way and more logical than a human would, because it does remove away emotion from it. You can get it to, of course, but if you remove it, it's going to work in the most logical approach. That works great for a lot of people, and in a lot of those scenarios, but it doesn't work for everyone, which is where you still need to have that elevation capability to a human to cover those more complex elements. But it's this is just the beginning. I mean, the capability of where this will be and what it could do from a complex, it is going to be, it's endless. And if you can dream it, even today, you could build it, right? So there is, the only thing that limits us today is what, if you're buying off the shelf, is a limitation. If you're building yourself, the limitation is cost. But the actual plausibility and the capability on build your own is endless. There is no limitation there. So we've created our own limitation, and that's what I'd say is where some of this is being slightly controlled into the market of how people want to use it, because of the fear and the trust elements of it. You get overcome that, and then you'll see that a further adoption of that capability.
I think that's maybe a topic I need a future guest for, actually, is the whole world of AI governance, especially with the EU AI Act coming in. But Mike, I think if we went onto that subject now, then we would still
Do you
be
want
here
another
in 20
hour,
minutes.
2 hours?
That's what I was thinking. And it would be good chat, but we might lose a few listeners by the end of it. So Mike, I'm going to ask, where can people find you if they want to learn more?
So absolutely reach out to me on, Acacia Consultants. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on the website, or mike.gale@acaciaconsultants.co.uk. Or they can always contact you, Chris, and you can always put me through to me from that perspective. But we are here to get the right product for the right customer, for the right scenario, and deliver it in the right manner. It's not just being agnostic. It's all about finding the right solution and the right capabilities, and asking the right questions at the end of the day. And that's where the experience in, unfortunately, my tenure in this industry has got me to. And if you delivering a product and a solution with a smile, that's all that matters.
Absolutely. Well, Mike, thank you very much for heeding my emergency call for a favour, and donning a nice shirt for the day as well.
That's my pleasure.
Thank you very much for joining us on My Favourite Customer Experience.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks for tuning in, folks. We'll see you again in a couple of weeks' time.
Thank you for listening to My Favorite CX. Your listenership is important to us. On your keypad, please press a number between 1 and 5 to rank how much you've enjoyed your experience.